For the second time in 3 weeks, Premier Rob Lantz has lost a cabinet minister. This time, Minister of Everything, Sidney MacEwen, who stepped aside to avoid violating the Provincial Conflict of Interest Act. He's been replaced by Ernie Hudson, who now really is the Minister of Everything in the Lantz government. This whole debacle is raising questions about the strength of the Premier's leadership and whether cracks of caucus solidarity are beginning to show. All this and a whole lot more. This is episode 5 of Myers and MacNeill. Let's get talking. Stephen Myers, welcome to episode 5 of Myers and MacNeill. I've got to start off with a bit of an apology to you and our dear listeners, because we did try to tape this a few days ago, and apparently a lesson I've learned is that mic levels matter, and I'm not supposed to tinker with them, and I tinkered with them, and even with the best efforts of my exceptional staff to fix my mistake, they were unable to, so we had to ask you to come back in again, and this is Sunday night. We're recording this. The good thing is that the biggest story in the province has changed subtly, but not insignificantly since we last talked, and that's Sidney MacEwen's resignation one day, and then the next day in the legislature when Rob Lantz was asked who the minister in charge was, he clearly hadn't thought of that because he said he was. And then the next morning, Ernie Hudson was appointed minister, and now it takes about 3 breaths to tell people what he's minister of. What are your thoughts? Have you ever seen anything like the last few weeks?
Few weeks, yeah. Like it's an absolute circus. I guess we'll start there. But I guess you want me to talk about the Ernie situation. So Ernie's really good. I mean, obviously, when Rob said he has experience in this profile, he clearly does. It's not that I don't think Ernie can do all of these jobs at once. What I really think that Rob's missing, and I've touched on it here different times, is that there's a certain amount of loyalty to the leader that goes along with being in politics. And there's a lot of people waiting to be rewarded for their loyalty that are on the backbenches. And he's taken yet another opportunity to not reward loyalty. And I always say Brendan Curran should go in, but Susie Dillon should go in, Hilton McLennan should go in, Tyler should go in. Like they've all done enough to probably earn a shot to do it. And he just walked right by them all and appointed someone else. So I know for sure that there's a lot of people that aren't happy inside right now. And I think that's one of the things he's going to have to face.
Well, we'll get into that because that's certainly a big thing, even if it's on a minor level. But let's just talk about how we move forward now. The legislation is still moving forward. Sidney MacEwen, when he quit, he did it on Facebook. He didn't do it with the provincial government press release. That came out after. And he sort of made it very clear that the process matters to him, and to have a clean process matters to him. And I've certainly gotten the sense through conversations I've had that I don't think Sidney's going back into cabinet anytime soon if the government continues to drive forward with a really bad piece of legislation. I mean, it is an overreach just in the phrasing. I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer to figure it's an overreach. Can the government move forward? Should they stop? Should they throw it to the side? And if it's as important to Rob Lantz as he says it is, make it a platform in their next election campaign.
Yeah, so I would tend to agree with you that Sidney probably won't accept another offer if they don't do this the way that he thinks it should be done. And I do think the fact that he put out his own message, and his message was, slightly different maybe than the government's message, is that maybe they're not on the same page. So I'm only reading into it. I haven't talked to Sidney about it. So I don't have any inside information from anybody on that part of it. But I do feel like Rob Lantz has to walk away from this. And I feel like many of his caucus are saying the same thing, if not to him, to each other. And he should be concerned about that if he's losing his caucus. He may have lost them already. And
he may have lost the caucus.
He may have on this. Like people, like it was embarrassing, Paul. The whole thing's embarrassing. And then
well, the Gilles Arsenault thing was embarrassing too.
Oh, this is worse. And then Friday night he puts out a video basically admonishing every one of us for having a different opinion than him and banging his fist on the table. I'm going to stop there. To make it even worse, Robert Mitchell, in his infinite wisdom, answers with one that might have been worse. Like his might have been worse. It was like, and it was almost like they met behind the scenes and said, "Let's make Matt premier. Let's make Matt premier. Let's do something really stupid today and make Matt premier." And they said, "Let's make stupid videos." And it was like a stupid video contest. And go watch the two of them side by side, and you'd be like, "Who are you two?"
I found the premier's support for the so-called private members bill really odd. I've never seen anything quite like it. And Rob was certainly, you can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to frame it around this notion that fishermen deserve to be in executive council, God damn it, because they're no different than teachers or lawyers or whatever. The problem is, he never talked about legislation until the federal government refused an exemption for Sidney. And then suddenly your man, Brendan Curran, comes forward with a private members bill that no doubt was authored by the premier's office or someone in government. And it looks like everything Rob says it's not. It looks like the government is trying to change the law for the benefit of the government.
Sure. And I think at this point, the public has turned on that. So I think it's time to walk away from the issue for no other reason at all, except that the public has turned, notwithstanding the fact that it's bad legislation. And I will say, kind of on the video thing again, because as you know, I have little children. The video reminded me of when they don't get their own way. It was like a temper tantrum. No, I was. Go back and think of children when you watch it and say it's like a child's temper tantrum. Like,
or a publisher.
Whoever, I'll tell you who, honest God, whoever was in his ear and said, let's do a video, should have serious consideration about looking to get somebody else to get in that ear, because it was the wrong message, the wrong time.
Yeah.
And it did not hit home like you thought it was going to. It was a laughing stock. And I've heard it from friends of mine who don't follow politics are laughing. I've been getting messages from people saying, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what have anything to do with this?
I mean, Rob Lantz had an awful week last week.
Oh, it's
when you combine what happened in Ottawa, which was he was at an Ottawa Chamber of Commerce event, and he was there. There were two other premiers, I think, maybe three other premiers. He criticized Mark Carney for using the word weakness in our relationship with the U.S., which is odd for a guy at 18% in the polls to be criticizing a prime minister who took a party from 16 to majority government in a year. But that's fine. What he tried to say was words matter. Don't poke the bear if you don't have to. But then almost in the same breath, he referenced a private informal conversation that he had with the U.S. ambassador, and Lantz suggested that the U.S. had no intention of going after a supply management system, which would be big news in this country, as you know, because Donald Trump has had a target on supply management for years. Only when he went on Power and Politics with David Cochrane, and David Cochrane backed him into a corner, and Rob had to acknowledge that, no, this was not U.S. policy. And then he said sort of the quiet part out loud when he tried to justify it by saying, sometime you have to, I'm paraphrasing here, make yourself look good. But that's not what he said specifically. But you give me your response to that, and I'll look for that exact quote.
And I had a message from somebody over that who I wouldn't say is a Tory or a Liberal or a Green, just a voter in the district that I used to represent. And what they said was, it would be comical if it wasn't our lives that he was dealing with right now. So I kind of feel like, probably private conversations are private. That's a must when you're in the diplomatic situations. Your private conversations with Carney are private. Your private conversations with ministers are private. Your private conversations with
ambassadors,
foreign delegates are
belligerent ambassadors.
Well, and then the other side I would say is, I really think it's time to stay home from Ottawa. You have the biggest deficit we've ever seen in this province. You have complete chaos where you're cutting bikes and books for kids. You have a crazy bill you're trying to jam through that nobody but you seems to want right now. You have to get home here. You have to deal with your own issues. You got to fix the party. And I'm a party member, so I'm not going to pretend I'm not a party member. You have to fix the party. You got to get out to the grassroots level. You got to talk to the people at their kitchen tables and drink tea and eat biscuits and do all the things that you need to do if you want this party to survive, because the party's going to be in trouble if you keep going down this road.
This is exactly what he said. You've got to differentiate yourself somehow, which meant him floating potentially an international trade incident, which could create an international trade issue, was about promoting himself. That's in essence what that comment means. Really bad week for the Premier.
I think everybody that I talk to, they're kind of way closer to politics than me, or they think he really relishes this chair of whatever the thing he's the chair of that no one else knows about.
Council of the Federation.
No one cares about that. I'll tell you, like I was
Nobody
elected.
cares.
I don't even know what it is. I don't know what they do. I don't know what it is. I've never. Yeah, one time I got a letter from them to work with my counterparts in Atlantic Canada to do the Atlantic Loop after we decided we weren't going to do the Atlantic Loop. Like, I don't know what they do. It's not more important. I'll tell you, it's not more important than Joe who doesn't have a doctor, or the person who's worried that their child's being bullied at school, or the fact that you're cutting books, like things like that. It's not more important than those things. It's more important to you. It's not more important to
That's
people.
what made his Premier's comment in his office all the more strange, because there are a whole host of issues he could comment to Islanders on: affordability, healthcare access, budget issues, a whole bunch of them. None of those. So when he tries to say that this is not about one person, he's actually made it about one person, and it's him.
I believe
It's not about Sidney.
No,
it's
right.
about Rob.
Right, because Sidney's walked away from it. Like Sidney had the good sense to walk away from it, and I hope Brendan has the good sense to walk away from it too, because it's his bill. If he says I'm not going to the floor, it is dead. It doesn't matter what Rob thinks. And I'll be honest, Brendan, who's got passed over twice now for a cabinet position, owes Rob Lantz nothing. He drug votes for him to get him elected. He owes him nothing more until Rob starts paying his own bill back to him, and that's a fact.
So what do you think? Is the bill going to be pulled?
I have no idea. I don't know that, but if it was me and you passed me over twice, I'll tell you, the people out here or that live out this way want you to stand up for yourself. They don't want you to be bullied around by somebody from Brighton. They don't. You know that.
How bad is it? I mean, how much damage have the Tories done in the last 15 months to
15 months, 15 days.
I know, but it was the year of sort of this slow dance of, well, he won't he, and the party sort of waiting him out and sort of manipulating rules and I've heard rumblings that people are starting to look at the people he surrounds himself with. And I think we could come up with 10 examples of where the Premier's words and actions didn't benefit the Premier or the government. And you're saying that now the caucus is starting to rumble. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, just hearing rumblings in there that they're not happy. How about this bill and barging through, and they're seeing the polling numbers, and there's people who feel like they don't have a say anymore. I mean, I lived through this, but I used to hear, and I won't use any of their names because it's not fair to them. I used to hear from the Liberals when they were sick and tired of answering to Wade, and like, look what happened to them when it falls apart. When you don't have soldiers, you can't take action. And this is the part that Rob and whoever it is that's in his ear in Brighton don't understand. When you don't have soldiers to execute your plans, you can't execute them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, because you need to get to 14.
You need to get 14, but you need to be able to do the hard things too. Like, you need somebody to do hard things that is in your government, because not everything's going to be easy.
Well, and we're just entering that phase. Really, in terms of the spending out, that the Fraser Institute was out this week, or I guess late last week, with just a scathing report on the Lantz budget. Basically, from the Fraser, and they're right wing. I mean, you have to sort of acknowledge they have an ideology, but from their perspective, it was a complete waste of an opportunity that will only hurt the province, both in the short term and the long term.
Yeah, I read that. It's been circulated around quite a bit, and I think that at the end of the day, I know government has to make tough choices. I said this before. I think they made easy choices because they cut things that were really easy because they took them from the most vulnerable people. So they didn't take a cut themselves.
So they didn't cut themselves.
So look, if you're going to bring in massive cuts and massive shift, and you're not saying we're going to get rid of government vehicles and we're going to cut our pay by 10% and legislate it and make the Green Party vote for it and make the Liberals vote for it and say, we're all giving our money back.
Correct.
And it doesn't amount to a whole lot, but it would amount the amount of money they were going to save by cutting children's books.
Well, and the NHL, I'm going to come back to the NHL every time, because if you give meetings, PEI or whatever they're called now, half of the amount The exponential benefit would be massively larger than whatever the perceived benefit is of the NHL, because nobody has actually told us what the benefit is of the NHL. Some conferences, that type of meetings, private events, that type of stuff. But in terms of increasing our tourism or our brand, nothing has been shown.
Well, and like I wonder the economy I think is shrinking too, Paul. And I know like I travel a little bit from my job and it's really easy to get a hotel from anywhere right now, which it's not always like that. And it makes me think that nobody's going anywhere or moving around anywhere. And like that stuff is really cheap. Or it used to be the price point for hotels used to be creeping up there pretty high. It's not there anymore. So that'd be the very first thing I would look at to say, we may be facing that here shortly anyway. So it wouldn't matter how much advertising you do if people don't have any money.
Well, and PEI is very expensive to get to, right? So, and what's on the rise? Jet fuel.
It's expensive to be here compared to other places. You go to Toronto, you wouldn't need a car. You can't come here without a car.
Correct.
Like the price for food here. We have great restaurants. Like don't get me wrong, we get, but it's the same price point as downtown Vancouver to eat at a restaurant here. So like it's not cheaper when you get here than it is to go to any other city either. So
Yeah.
if you don't have money to go somewhere, you don't have money to go anywhere. And PEI.
So does Rob? I haven't heard any rumors about this, but does he have the sort of the wherewithal within the PC party to lead them into the next election? I mean, it would almost be suicide to get rid of him now.
I don't see him making the summer at the rate he's going.
You don't.
The people that are like telling you, Paul, people I'm hearing from, like it's not like I thought he could fix it. And I've said in this podcast a number of times, like, got to get out and fix the party. I don't know. I wouldn't do it today for sure. Like, I think he's lost the trigger. I am. And I think he'll see it himself here shortly. They'll do internal polling, I'm sure, after the legislative session, and he'll look and see I'm going to lose my own seat.
You think it's that bad already?
Yeah. You don't?
I do, but you're the former cabinet minister in that government.
And the guy who always said was on his mind too. So
True.
So like I'm not sugarcoating it. And I mean, look, politics is hard, and it's I hate to say it, but it's a blood sport. Like you don't to just stick around because you want to be premier, you want to be a cabinet minister. You got to fight every day to be there, and sometimes you lose, and sometimes you're losing. And if you're going to pull everybody down the tank with you, like I don't have to do anything. They'll all come to their own realization that he cannot lead them into that, and they'll take care of it.
So who's the person or people who would have the courage to go up to Rob Lantz and say, you need to do this, this, and this, or you're probably got a short life expectancy as premier?
I don't know at this point. Or they'll just one day he'll come in and they'll turn on him.
You're not floating things. You're confident that you're hearing rumblings within the Tory caucus.
Oh yeah,
of discontent.
Yeah, there's discontent, and there's discontent in the party, both. Yep, absolutely.
Did that happen back in 2011? The Olive Crane. Are there any comparables?
Well, he's polling lower than she was when they ran her out of town. That's one comparable. I think.
There's your sign.
Except the people that were against Oliver in the party are in his camp.
Yeah, it's funny how perceptions change with time.
Yeah, that number's not so bad, I guess. But we were a really small caucus. Like there was a lot of dysfunction in the caucus at that time, but there wasn't a whole lot of organization because there's nothing to organize.
Yeah.
So I will say I'm glad I'm not there because
should he start at least with a clearing of house within his own sort of staff in the office? Would that be a first start that people might say?
I don't know. He needs political help. He needs political radar. Like we were really fortunate in the government I served in. We had Dennis King.
Yeah.
Who had a great political radar, and he had a couple of soldiers, of which I was one, and I had a lot of leeway to do things, and the things I did I thought helped.
You know, one of the things that I find fascinating about Rob Lantz is smart guy, has the right chin, wears the right suit, nice deep voice, but he has a habit of just sort of throwing things out into the ether without thinking about what that means in terms of ramifications or repercussions. You know, let's build a tunnel to Nova Scotia. Maritime Electric will be the first bill that we're going to pass. This whole thing with Sidney and his sort of staunch defense
Sunshine
of it.
List.
Sunshine List is another big one. Thank you. Yeah, I should never forget that. What does that say to you, Stephen, about sort of his political antenna or
I'm
capacity?
not sure if it's antenna so much or that he doesn't actually have the control that he needs. Like he said there was going to be a sunshine list. Jill Birch said there wasn't going to be.
Yeah.
So like what Rob Lantz didn't say there wasn't going to be, Jill Birch did. So I don't know. Sidney MacEwen was the minister at the time that basically said that legislation wasn't going to come to the fall. That was going to be Rob's first piece of legislation. So that would indicate to me he doesn't have the control. He needs to actually execute things that he's saying out loud.
Or is this, I mean, he did, to be fair to Rob, he did sort of campaign on the fact that he will let his ministers lead their departments, right?
Sure. You can't say stuff that you can't say policy if you're going to do that, though. You can't say policy and have one of your top ministers say, no, I'm not doing that for him. Like you get chuckled over that stuff.
Joe Burridge, for her to suggest in any way that what she's proposing as a sunshine list is one of the most
It's what
bogus
you
things,
always got. It's what you got since we were in government in 2019.
which is completely lack of transparency. We've also had a couple of budget walkbacks, Dolly Parton, imagination books, rebates for bikes for kids. Did they have a choice? I thought, you know what? I actually thought Robin Croucher put forward a plausible and you may not agree with it, but I thought he was pretty good in the House when he said we had to make really tough decisions, and there was a reason that I said, and he took ownership for it, that I said cut that, and it's because we have provincial libraries that are doing this, and there was some question about whether the people who you think are getting the free books are actually getting the free books. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I do think that the Minister of Education put forward a stronger defense of the rationale for making the cut than the provincial government did in walking it back.
Right. I guess. I mean, yeah. I think that there's a lot of things in there that I don't think should have ever been cut because it was just poor political antenna. So if it was Robin, then it was a bad decision. The bike rebate was a bad decision. Like it wasn't thought out. If you would save yourself a lot of headache, but just not put it in to begin with, because both items were so small that you weren't saving anything anyways. Like there'll be special warrants for way beyond that before the year happens, before the legislature closes at the rate that they're going in there. But I also think that they needed to backtrack on them, but also they didn't need to backtrack on them because when you start backtracking on things, you look like you're waffling. You can't make decisions, which is one of the knocks in the public on Rob Lantz to begin with. So
Yeah.
you're basically proving what people are saying about Rob in the coffee shops right now that he's not to make a decision by doing that. And like Wade did it, we got him to waffle things. Remember, he went back on the Georgetown school, and I could probably think of other things he did, but every time he did it, it was like a double win for us because it looked like I thought, and he backed down, and then it looked like he was indecisive. So then we started
Right.
saying that he's indecisive. He can't make a decision because he makes one, lets the public tell him it's bad, and then he backs down from it. So there's a reason why you don't want to make bad decisions, I guess.
Dennis King was very fond of saying, as I know you know, that if somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Right. Well, and there's something to be said for that. Like I think that sure, there's cuts that are going to be made, and I know the government said we had to make hard decisions, and I don't believe that those are really easy decisions that they made. They haven't made those hard decisions yet. So the hard decisions are to come, and that's when they start sending people home.
And you know what? I mean, that's the sad part is we don't seem to be capable of having a conversation at this point about what government can and should look like. I mean, Corey Deagle, and kudos to Corey for coming up with a middle management review. And I know I've seen some sort of chatter on social media saying you could do it in 2 months or something like that. I actually like the idea of saying, because health is big, it's $1 billion. And there's a lot of middle management, and I think there's all kinds of room to find efficiencies, but you got to be strategic in where you find them, right? I always remember when we did Through the Cracks a few years ago, and there were 3 directors responsible for Mount Herbert. I mean, and, and that just meant that people who knocked on the door and needed help now, and they were ready to receive treatment or support, were often turned away because the right person who could make the decision wasn't in the building.
Yeah, and I do think I do. I've been hearing a lot of good things actually about this review from nurses that are like, thank God, finally somebody's doing this. So I think like Tory might have won a lot of votes on the ground. We always say there's parties that you don't want to anger. Nurses is one of them. Teachers is one of them. Fishermen and farmers are the other. Those are kind of the four that you try to, because they're such big groups and they all talk to each other so much that you can lose them all together or win them all together. And I feel like this is a really smart move on Tory's part. But I think Tory has been, this session, probably the best politician in the legislature, politically speaking. And he's been poised and he's shown a lot of leadership. And I know that I had a text from a sitting MLA the other day that said, we made a mistake. It should have been Tory. So,
well, he was the one they were throwing out. They threw out first.
To say that, could you put your foot in his back and pull the knife out?
You know what? That's an interesting question. It's possible. I do think Ledwell of the three was the one who could change the narrative.
Sure.
And that's what was needed, right? I'm thinking he's probably pretty happy that he didn't win right now, because it's a bit of a shit show, as they say.
It is, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better the next little while. And the Tories have to have a good week this week. So that bill has to disappear, and they have to be spot on, and they can't have anything could have squeaked out.
How does the Premier walk that back after that statement from the Premier's office? I mean, there's only one way to interpret it, in that it's a government bill under the guise of a private member's bill, because otherwise, why is the Premier so outraged? So has he actually boxed himself into a corner where he's going to be criticized no matter what he does?
Well,
it will be fair criticism.
It's never going to get passed. Brendan has an hour a week, and there'll be other backbenchers who are going to want to bring stuff to the floor that they want to talk about, like motions, maybe about farming or the milk quota that the Premier talked about in Ottawa, like those types of things that are going to be important to them too. So they're going to be like, well, I want time too to do my thing. So Brendan won't have all the time the rest of the session. And because it's an hour block, and haven't had to do this in opposition, that's an easy block to kill asking questions. You just give them a barrage of questions and you argue with them and tell them they're wrong with the answer. And
problem with it, and I do agree, I think it's got to go. And if you really believe it, you put it in your party's platform for the next election. But Blois Thompson went out on a limb. I mean, the political capital that's been spent by Blois has a pretty high reputation.
Oh yeah, he's like, and he is salted,
not prone to sort of angry or petty outbursts, to my knowledge. And he's really gone to bat for this legislation. And if it's pulled, how does that look for Blois Thompson?
You have to weigh the whole thing out and say, is having to eat crow worse than losing 10 more points in the polls over this, because it's something tangible people can wrap their heads around now, and they say, well, we don't want this, even though most people don't even know what is actually going on. They know they don't want it. So the narrative has been successfully created that it's bad.
Yeah.
And I go back to e-gaming because it was one that I use. I don't even really 100% know what happened to e-gaming, but it was bad, and I convinced everybody it was bad.
You should have read the Eastern Graphic, because we broke it and told you everything that you needed to know.
It was back before I could afford a subscription. You put the prices up a lot since then too, I must say.
We have not. We have not. We understand who our readers are and what they need in life.
I have a digital subscription. I don't even
Thank
know.
You very much.
I don't know what to pay.
We appreciate your patronage. So yeah, but Corey, the other side of it, and we talked about this sort of offhand, was Corey's manipulation of the federal government programs that were allowed to expire because they had an expiration date. Everybody knew they had an expiration date. They were short-term programs. That's how they were built and funded. And Corey did an expert job of flipping the script and making it into federal liberal cuts, when the reality is they actually aren't liberal cuts, but the minister did a good job politically, to your point.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job on that. And I mean, Robert Kiss did it to me a number of times where he just flipped the script and like a fool, I chased it and lost the entire week's narrative on it. And I mean, say Robert Kiss was the best I've seen at the whole legislature, like
oh really?
Oh yeah, not even no one in all my time is anywhere as close to Robert Kiss.
Wow.
No, he was good. He could change a moment on you, and he was so smart, and he knew so much stuff. Like he remembered stuff so well. And he had our last answer you couldn't talk after he answered. So he waited and baited you into saying something. Then he took the opportunity and he'd bash you for 3 minutes. You'd be sitting there like, oh, how did this happen? But on Corey's case is kind of what he did. He took a narrative, he threw it out there. The Liberals didn't have enough knowledge to know that it was something that was going to expire anyways. It made CBC. It was like one of the top stories. The next day, the Liberals come back all mad, go after him, chasing the story. CBC doesn't cover it because they've already covered it. So they're not going to say, oh, yeah, by the way, actually what we did, the Liberals now say is wrong. So it doesn't turn into another story. And then they get out on Facebook ranting about it. I mean, and Corey basically shifted a whole narrative that probably the Liberals could have stuck on the Sidney MacEwen and the legislation being bashed through, and split this narrative and had the Liberals chasing something else. So for Corey, like that's political expertise to be able to do that.
So what's a good week look like to Conservatives now? Because my sense is that people have probably started to tune out the Premier and the government, that things are baked in. I thought they were baked in sort of through the whole year lead up to the leadership. But if they weren't, they sure as hell are now.
Well, so they have to get control of the narrative back. It has to not be about them. It has to be about people and things that people want. So that's a start. They can't have any hiccups this week. There can't be any messes this week. That's why this legislation has to go bye-bye. It has to be seamless and professional and look like you're in control. And quite honestly, I think they need to come with something new for people to chew on. Like I don't know if you follow, I'm sure that you do follow Premier Rob Lantz in Manitoba. And this weekend he announced that he's going to ban social media for children and AI chatbots. And I'm like, it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant and caring about the next generation. There's a clip on Instagram that he has, and he's basically like, our children aren't for sale. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I lived there so I could vote for him.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean,
well, he also said that they're not bringing back American booze until all tariffs are removed and Trump releases all the Epstein files.
But I mean, there's a guy who's connecting with his electorate.
Yeah.
Bring me a bill banning that kind of stuff here. Ban social media for kids here. Ban AI chatbots for kids here. I really think that anybody who has children is going to be like, yes, thank you so much for doing this. And at least you're appealing to a sect instead of.
Well, where are they potentially very weak? In Charlottetown.
Potentially very, very weak in Charlottetown, and
with a lot of families there that might resonate, especially if he ties it into the bullying file, right?
And my guess is that the party would be, because of the weak association we have with the federal Conservatives, I would say that they're probably trailing with women too, which this is, and I don't, not that just because as a parent I care about social media, and I'd be 100% behind that, but I think that's one where you could get some support from women that they may not be as strong. So I'm not saying they're not, but I'm only guessing based on the federal politics.
Star of the week.
Corey Deagle, hands down star of the week. He had the Monica the Brodie McCarthy event for organ tissue donation, which I thought was great. I thought him flipping the script was really great. His review in Health PEI that hit a home run with nurses is really great. And his one-liner, "Where is the great Mark Carney now?" made me laugh out loud. And you know what? As much as you may not want to believe this, it's red meat that the Tories need right now, so they can feel happy to be Tory. And Corey Deagle's given them the leadership that they feel like they don't have, and the red meat that they're dying to chew on.
Yeah, the problem is they stabbed him about 17 times in the back,
and he's still loyal enough to.
Yes, he is
to show leadership. He's showing.
Ernie Hudson. I mean, initially I was going to pick Ernie before I screwed up with the mic volume issue, because there was a moment in the legislature where he forgot to table a document that he had promised to table the day before. Came into the House, and you can tell when somebody's sincere. Ernie apologized to the opposition member. He apologized to the members of the House, and he apologized in general for doing it. And he owned it. He said it was a mistake on his part, and he promised to deliver it the next day. And he did. And I thought, Ernie has had some tough portfolios over the years, but no one has ever questioned his integrity or his gentlemanliness. And I think that was on display in that moment. And also, too, for taking one for the team here. I mean, I don't know. I saw someone said somewhere, if Ernie Hudson can have like 6 portfolio focuses, why do we need so many MLAs? And there may be truth in that, especially if he pulls it off. But I do question whether he has the capacity. He has the capacity, but it's the focus to ensure that the bureaucracy drives forward things like the maritime electric bill, because if Sidney isn't coming back, how long does Ernie hold this portfolio?
That's a good question. My guess is that Rob thinks he's coming back, but I do think Ernie is a gentleman. He's smart. He knows his way around politics. So it's not that I don't worry about Ernie being able to do the job, but I think that Rob thinks something's going to happen that I don't think is going to. But
Again, you got to talk to people, right? Read Sidney's Facebook post, and
I did, and I haven't even talked to Sidney. I read his Facebook post, and I said, "You're not coming back."
Stephen Myers. This is episode 5 of Myers and MacNeill. Take 2. This is a good one. Thanks very much. Look forward to 6.